Hello, this is Jeremy Spencer with All on Georgia News. I'm with Mr. Artie Jones Jr. He is running for City Council in St. Mary's, Post 1. And we're here today to talk about his campaign, his platform, and many issues that are surrounding the St. Mary's elections going into the November 6th general election period. So thank you for meeting with me today, Mr. Jones. I appreciate that. So how long have you lived in St. Mary's? How long have you been here?
I've been here all my life except for a brief tour in the military. I was born in Fernandina because I was born by midwife. Didn't have a hospital here at the time. My father was born here. His father was born here. Well, I'm a fifth generation. So I've been here all my life, and I found out that by knowing your past, you can understand what to do in the future for a small little town like St. Mary's.
Okay. Well, let's get into talking about why you want to run for office. You've been in office before.
Yes.
You were a county commissioner. Have you held any other offices?
No,
okay.
Just county commissioner.
So you were county commissioner for this section of Camden County?
For St. Mary's.
St. Mary's.
St. Mary's District.
And when was that?
I was first elected back in 1978, and I was in and out until 1996.
Okay, all right. So you held that office how many times?
5 terms.
Okay, and so a lot of people know your style of governance and that have been here in this community a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so why are you running for city council in St. Mary's?
Well, for years, we've always had problems with government. St. Mary's is no exception. But we've always been able to address the issues and work it out. We have a great bunch of people here in St. Mary's, and we have an even greater bunch of people moving in. And what we need to do is try to focus how to make the newcomers welcome, as well as have the older people that's been here, keep them comfortable. And what's happening, Jeremy, is that I'm afraid that we're going to be taxed to the point where my father and my aunts and my uncles and things won't be able to stay in their homesteads. The homes are paid for, but when you're living on a fixed budget and on a fixed income, you just can't stand any more taxation. And that's one of the reasons why I ran. I have over 150, 200 family members right in this area that fit that category.
Okay. So what are some major, if you're elected, what are the major things that you're going to focus on or want to focus on when you're on council?
Well,
it doesn't have to be a bunch. I mean, it can be a few things that we can talk about today, but what do you think the top issues are for you to address?
Well, the top issue, like I said, was reduced taxation. We are making decisions, and everybody can be a Monday morning quarterback. We can all say what we would or should or could have done in the past. But I'm not going to focus on that. I want to focus on what we can do in the future in order to bring us out of the problems that we're in. Most of the taxpayers are not asking for the world, but their little problems mean a lot to them. And I think that we as elected officials, we need to take an individual look at these problems. Don't just wait until they come to board and make a decision, because when you get 2 or 3 people suffering from the same problem and they come to the board meeting, it's going to be negative. But if you can get 1 or 2 of those people on the sideline and say, look, Jeremy, I hear that you have a problem with a ditch out there. Let's go out there and see if there's anything that we can do about it. That person, whether you do anything about it or not, they'll feel better because they know that you took that attention to at least address their problem.
Okay, and you talked about one of the issues was keeping taxes low. Last night, the council unanimously voted to increase taxes almost by a mil which is over almost 17% increase. And so they voted to do that. They gave all the council members gave an explanation as to why that needed to happen. They referenced drainage concerns. They referenced public works issues. Personnel are down as one reason to increase the taxes. Improving the radio issues with the police and fire. That was another explanation they gave. But some of the citizens that spoke in the tax hearings were saying that the drainage issues and other things, this has been an issue for a long time, and they didn't feel like it was fair to increase taxes in the current environment that we're in, being the fact that certain things have not been done because of the recovery of Irma. So a lot of political wins, a lot of things that the citizens are saying as to why they shouldn't have increased the taxes. But the council made a good case last night as to why they should have raised the taxes. So do you feel like raising those taxes at this time was the right thing to do?
Well, again, we can all say what we would or should have done. Some of the things that the council did in the past is causing the tax increases now. Mm-hmm. They laid off people from the road department and other areas that they should have kept. And these drainage problems might never have occurred, because when you short of manpower, you have to take care of the basics. And when the hurricane hit and everything else, they were just bombarded. And now, we just have to figure a way to get out of it. But a lot of the problems that we have has been from problems that they created in the past.
And you're talking about previous councils that created this issue, or are you saying the current council members?
Well, some of the current council members, and like I said, I don't. Let me back up. I want to say one thing first. We had two men that were running for city council back out of the race. And it's unfortunate that they did. I can understand the family problems and health problems. But the tension that you face in public office is overwhelming sometimes. And I applaud anybody who put their name on the line to run. And more so, I applaud those people that are in office that's taking a beating because of things that's happening. Some things beyond their control. We can't go back and undo some of those things, but these people acted to the best of their ability with the concern about the most of the people in St. Mary's. Whether they're new people or whether they're old people, I think that they genuinely were concerned about what's going on. The problem that I have is that they don't know the past of St. Mary's. I'm talking about 20, 30 years ago. And when you don't know your past, you're going to repeat certain things. And it's always good to be prepared for those things. We know that a hurricane is going to happen every year, so we have to be prepared for them. We know that certain things are going to happen. Ditches, that's something that's going to have to be done.
So just to clarify, you're saying that people that know the community for a long time that don't know the community for a long are making decisions that are not aware of what's happened in the past.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And like I said, it's not that they don't care or not concerned,
Mm-hmm.
but when you make one mistake, it creates another mistake,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We have to go back to the basics. We have to have a hands-on approach to some of these problems. Sure, we have a city manager and we have all these other bureaucrats, but we need to be aware of some of these problems and ask questions with the department heads and everybody else before these problems are created.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the big issues that lead into that. The infrastructure and the drainage. It's been a top issue since Hurricane Irma came through. We got with northeast side of her, and she beat us up pretty bad. And we're covering that. Where do you think? What is your opinion of the drainage maintenance issues in the city? I mean, how would you grade it? Would you give it an A, a B, a C, an F? I mean, based on where we live, how would you grade our drainage issues, and how would you grade the city's response?
Well, one of the problems is, like I said, 20 years ago when some of these subdivisions were being built, we knew that there was going to be trouble. Some of them were built in swamps, and we knew that these were swamps. And we allowed a contractor to come in and do the building, and it was okay for a while. But then when you get a clog in the drainage system, it backs up everything. And unless you keep it clean continuously, it's going to always be that way. And that's the problem that we're facing now. When the drainage and everything was good, we didn't have no busted culverts and everything. We had good drainage. But now that the hurricane has come and backwashed trash into the system, we have a major problem. So, it's nobody can blame a hurricane. That's an act of God. But what I'm concerned about is we knew about these things in the past, and had we addressed these things and had our crews to stay out there and make sure that these drainage ditches and things were done before these hurricanes arrived, we wouldn't have the problems that we're having now.
Okay. Let's see. Another issue that seems to be on the minds of everybody, and it does relate to the draining issues. Of course, some people would debate that the zoning codes have nothing to do with drainage. It has to do with land use. But when you have use of land, you have drainage issues. So, I don't know that argument holds well. What is your opinion of the current zoning codes that are being proposed to council right now? What is your opinion on those?
Well, I think they need to just throw those away and start over. One of our biggest problems is the codes that we had before we weren't enforcing them. And as far as drainage and things concerned, if every time you build a house or two houses or three houses, it's going to cause some drainage problem because concrete doesn't absorb water. So it's just a catch-22 thing. How much building can you stand in certain areas, before you have these massive drainage problems? If we go about it in the right way, you can still build and you can still have a good drainage system, but the city have to hold a thumb to the builders, make sure that they do everything by code, and especially when it comes to drainage.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the codes, it appears to be, as I've been recovering this issue, I don't think anybody's covered it more than I have in this county in terms of news. According to what I'm seeing, it seems like there is a struggle to manage what we have now in terms of the codes versus what we're seeing in the 120 plus page document from the new codes. It seems like council is trying to figure out what's enforceable and what's not enforceable. They've also hired a new code enforcement officer, and they plan to hire an additional code enforcement officer based on the tax increase last night as they presented to the public. My question, I guess, to you at this point is, if you are on council and these codes are in your lap already, if they were voted on and passed by the previous council before you, and here they are for you, what do you plan to do as a council member to make sure that the codes are enforced fairly?
Well, a lot of the codes and things that we have now, they just can't be enforced. To put it simply, they just can't be enforced. So some of these people will have to be grandfathered in. I think that our code enforcement officers need to work by the spirit of the law and not the letter of the law. For instance, a few of my signs were taken up. And the code enforcement officer said, well, they were a couple of feet out of the way, so he went and pulled them all up and he carried them down to City Hall, which, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I want to do the right thing. If I had known that they were not in compliance, I would have taken them up myself. But I didn't know. But if the code enforcement officer was going to use the spirit of the law, he would have called me, because everybody's got my phone. Mr. Jones, on Wheeler Street here, we have one of your signs that's out of place. Yes, sir. I would have gone down there and I would have taken care of it. It would have saved him work and saved me work. These are the kind of things that we have to be concerned about. And just because somebody is not completely in compliance, consideration need to be taken as to if that person living on a fixed income, if he can comply. You have to sit down and talk with these individuals on individual purpose, on individual matter. You can't just walk in and say, look, that car is broken down and you got to have it off your property in 3 days, or else, we're going to write you up. Mm-hmm. You need to try to work with these people to make sure that they can comply. Because most people they want to obey the law. They want to do what's right.
Let's move into economic development. St. Mary's is trying really
I'm
hard.
having trouble connecting to the internet. Take a look at the help section in your Alexa app.
Alexa. You said something about Alexa.
Oh, I did? Something that sounded like her?
Yeah.
Sorry. But let's take a look at the economic development issues in St. Mary's. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of projects going on, a lot of work with the Joint Development Authority. One of the economic development issues is what they call the Wharf of St. Mary's, and they're building it on the proposed mill site. Old mill site. What is your opinion of that project, and do you think it's a viable project for the community?
It depends. If everything goes through the way they say it will, I think it's a viable project. But everything that we have now are proposals. When they start putting a shovel in and start doing some things, then you have to take another look at it. But right now, I think it's just in the air. I can't really give my opinion on it.
Okay. There's other economic projects that are being put in place. The Intercoastal Gateway project, which was the property is, of course, the old Gilman Boathouse property. The city bought it for $1.3 million, and a month or so ago, they recently approved the purchase of a property just north of there to increase the footprint of the project. They bought that out of the general fund for $285,000. We still don't have a developer. If you're on council, how do you approach that situation? Because at the moment, it seems like that we may have a developer, we may not have a developer. It's still, like you had just mentioned with the wharf, it's still a proposal. It's in a very proposed state. Is this a viable issue for the city of St. Mary's?
Well,
meaning the Intercoastal Gateway project.
First of all, and like I said, we all have 20/20 hindsight. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, I didn't think that we needed to get out and buy that property, because when the city buys property, what happens? It takes it off the tax map. So it's not taxable. It's not bringing in any revenue. Plus the $1.3 million that they put into it could have helped in reducing the taxes. And the property that they brought, I don't know what their reasoning is. I wasn't in the chamber when they were discussing these things, but to buy that other piece of property to me, is like throwing good money after bad money. I'm not a developer. I have built buildings and homes. I've built a couple of daycare centers, and they thrive. They're doing well. I understand that you have to make sure that you're going to get your money out of these things before you step into it. And I'm sure that they thought that they were going to increase the tax digest by buying this piece of property, but right now I can't see that happening. You have too much invested in it to make anything out of it. And I don't think a developer is going to step in there and lose money.
Do you think the property right now has that 10-foot easement that goes around it? It's a public easement, and it's for public use. And that Mr. Gant, who's been leading that project since he's been on council for 8 years, says that the council wants to continue to keep that easement public on that property. And you've built places before, daycares and private businesses and stuff. If you were a private business wanting to put something on a property like the Intercoastal Gateway property, would you want to put something there that has a public easement?
Well, I would give the developer the option to buy the easement and everything. I just don't think that the city need to be into developing. I don't think that we need to be in the real estate business at all. I think that we should let private enterprise take over. And like I said, we all have 20/20 hindsight. Had we not bought that property, we would have been $1.5 million richer by now. It was whoever bought the property would have been paying taxes on it, whether it's $3,000 or $4,000 a year, whatever. I just don't feel like that we're going in the right direction with the Gateway project.
Okay. And that issue will continue to loom over the city of St. Mary's until there's somebody there. So we'll move on to another issue in St. Mary's. It's got a history. The hospital authority and the city have a history with going to court. They have a history of discussing things concerning the funding that they have. The hospital authority manages due to the sale of a nursing home that used to be the Gilman Hospital. They have a $3.6 million trust that they oversee, and now what they do is they oversee the operations and maintenance of the senior center. Recently, at their last hospital authority meeting, they had to have a discussion with the city manager about what that consent order meant from Judge Scarlett about the operation and maintenance of the senior center. The attorney for the hospital authority, Mr. Stein, has said that it also goes to help with the programs of senior citizens in St. Mary's 55 and over. He said the consent order, the lengthier portion of the consent order alludes to that. But Mr. Holman, the city manager, says that any expenditures or any things that have to be funded from the hospital authority has to go through his office so that it's documented. And so the hospital authority is now considering possible litigation to take to Superior Court and ask the judge to redefine what he means in his consent order concerning the operations and maintenance of the St. Mary Senior Center. So now we're back where we were 6 or 7 years ago when a citizen took them to court about a similar issue, and then there were issues before that. So my question to you is about the hospital authority and the city's relationship. what do we need to do to improve that relationship where the senior center program is concerned?
Well, Jeremy, first of all, I think we need to think of what's best for the seniors. You know, we get so tied up in whose horse is the fastest, or who's got the most money, or who's got the most people out there. We need to think about what's best for the seniors. We can't just fight among ourselves and waste taxpayer dollars that could go toward helping these seniors in court. Anytime you go to court, you lose. And who lose? The taxpayers. Who lose? The senior citizens. We need to have a few people that can sit down and discuss this thing rationally and find out how we can get over this hurdle without wasting our money in court. And, you know, I know that they want everything to come through Mr. Hallman, but, you know, sometimes you need to take a lot of the bureaucratic red tape out of these issues. And
well, the reason why Mr. Hallman is asking for that is because the city or the hospital authority never had an audit. They never had an audit since 2012. In their 50-something year of existence, they never had a financial audit. So Mr. Holman, or in 2012, they were told by the city to get an audit. They did, because a citizen took them to court, and then they did the audit, and then they didn't do another audit after that.
Yeah.
And so in 2016 and 17, now they're going to have to go back to 2016 and 17 to do an audit that's being requested by the city. So that's why Mr. Holman is asking for those things.
Well, I can say that we definitely need to have audits. We need to find out where and when a dollar is being spent. A prime example is the PSA.
Right.
You know, you just because everything is going well doesn't necessarily mean that the money is being put where it's supposed to be. Definitely, we need to have audits and everything, but we need to make sure that we get an audit and then we put the people in place that we trust and we know are going to have the best outlook for the seniors. That's the main concern, the seniors.
Speaking of audits, and you talk about the PSA, we're kind of transitioning to that just a little bit. The cities of Woodbine, Kingsland, St. Mary's, and the county all had to pony up $700,000 and most likely more to essentially bail out the PSA's debts going for that 2018 fiscal year. The city of St. Mary's specifically decided to pay, I can't remember how much it was, $223,000 possibly, I think it was, but they used a population formula which was recommended by the county, but the city of Kingsland didn't do that. The city of Kingsland used a tax digest, which allowed them to pay less money to the issue. It appears that the tax digest formula appears to be a more streamlined approach to that, but I understand why Kingsland did what they did because they have other obligations to the PSA.
Right.
About vehicle maintenance, that was an issue that they have with the city. But do you think the city had the responsibility to do what they did to pay out the $223, whatever it was, $237,000? Do you think that was the right thing to do? It does say in their agreement that they're responsible for that. But
if you have an equal obligation or you have equal responsibility on the board, I think that we need to pay our share.
So what do you think that moving forward the PSA needs to do with oversight and board structuring? Do you think it needs to change? Do you think they just need to do a better job, or
I just think that they need to keep a better look at the purse string.
Well, they didn't have an audit either, like you said. It was
Exactly.
2004 since they had an audit. So the issue with the audits obviously is needed for both the hospital authority and the PSA. let's see, let me look at my other topics here. Taxes and fees. We kind of hit taxes, but let's talk about fees as it relates to businesses. I have spoken to several people in the business community, and I have spoken to some people in the Chamber of Commerce who will go unnamed, but they have told me that the city of St. Mary's is the hardest place to get a business license because of fees and permits and things of that nature. If you're on council, what can you do, and what would you do to help the business climate in St. Mary's improve?
Well, you know, this has always been a touchy subject with me. Back in 1996, we built our first child care center. Everything went pretty smooth. Didn't have any problems at all, except maybe with some state regulators. But in 2006, it was extremely difficult, you know, going through the different channels and the licenses and everything else. It was terrible. And I think that we need to be a little bit more business friendly. If you had a multi-million-dollar business coming in, gonna bring in, say, 200 jobs, the city would give them incentives to come in. Why not give these small businesses incentives also? I would rather them pay a little bit of taxes, a little bit of fees, and come in and make some jobs and things than to pay a higher fee and not come in at all. Because right now, you know, businesses, they just can't get in because of some of the fees and restrictions and things. I would like to be a little bit more business friendly.
So do you think the city of St. Mary's is just too rigid on their fee process? Are they too rigid on that? Is that why businesses aren't wanting to come here?
Yes. I mean, just a plain out yes.
Okay. I mean, it's clear that we have some problems. We have open or unfilled buildings in our community and things of that nature. So it looks like based on what the folks I've spoken with in the chamber, off the record, it looks like that they. I will say this. One of the members I spoke with said that they ran a mock. They wanted to do a mock, if you will, situation where it was a fictitious business. They want to come in. They want to set up shop in St. Mary's. What do they have to do? Because it was understood that the chamber wanted to tell businesses this is what will happen if you come to St. Mary's. This is what you need to expect,
right. And
give them a package to say, hey, this is the kind of thing to go. Do you think the city should be doing this?
Definitely the city should be doing it. I mean, I applaud the chamber for taking a step in that direction. And it seemed like the chamber is more business minded or business savvy than the city is.
Would you be if you're on council, would you be open to those discussions?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Definitely would be open.
All right.
Anything that's gonna make businesses come into the area.
Let's see. And this has been on the mind of some citizens since the zoning and planning new codes that they've been labeled HOA-like, homeowners association-like, and a lot of it's been tweaked before the council has received it. But one of the things that has come up in the conversation since that happened is unfair representation in the city of St. Mary's in terms of voting. The West St. Mary's precinct has a very high voter turnout compared to the rest of the precincts in the city, and kudos to them. At least they're getting out and voting. But what some of the citizens are saying is that they feel like many places in the city, and not just the planning and zoning piece, but just other things are being ignored in other areas of the city, and they feel like having a district voting wide system versus an at-large system is more fair. I had actually discussed this with people years ago. I've discussed it with local civic groups, local NCAA chapters, and they were for it. I spoke with Mr. Eddie Rome several years ago about it. So what do you think? Do you think the city should be broken up into voting districts, or should we remain at large? The issue is that we're having a hard time fielding a candidate for each of these districts. But what is your position on that?
Well, right now it seems like we don't have representation in all of the districts. For instance, if instead of me running for post 1, I could have ran for post 3 or for post 2. Whichever one looked the easiest. We need to make it more equitable for the people that live in that area. It's assured that the people in Osprey, for instance, they get out and vote. These people are used to voting, and they vote en masse. There are certain people in certain segments of town that says, well, it's no sense in me voting. I'm going to be outvoted anyway. My vote's not going to count. The last election that I ran, there were I counted over 337 votes in a certain area. And I know that they could have been, most of them would have been for me. And out of that, only 17 people voted. And they said it wouldn't have mattered. But I lost by 3 votes or 4 votes.
Right. So I also ran several years ago. I lost by around 10 votes. So I had a similar situation that you did. I won 4 out of the 5 precincts and lost the one that had 50% voting turnout. So would you be in favor of a district voting?
Yes, I think we need to look into that, because I think that if you're going to represent these people, you should be accountable. You should be in that district.
Well, as we grow, the City of St. Mary's is starting to have pockets of need.
Yes.
More specific need.
And the needs are different.
And so that, I think it's a viable discussion to have. The opponents of that discussion would say that you would have a hard time fielding a candidate. But the issue is, whether you're running at large or whether you're running, in a district, you still have to get somebody to run for that post.
Exactly.
So that's interesting that you would be for that, and I appreciate that, because I've been for that for a while. But it has to get to a point where it goes to local legislation,
right?
And then that goes up to the state representative, and then the state representative pushes that through.
Put it in form of referendum or whatever. Well, they don't have to put it in form of referendum; they can just do it. But we definitely need to have representation in the area that we're in, because let's just say downtown St. Mary's. If downtown St. Mary's people ran post 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and for the mayor, their chances would be a lot greater than the people that lives out in the Cumberland Oak area, having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because these people don't feel like they're going to be represented, and they won't vote.
Yeah, several citizens, and I've written about this, feel that there is a disenfranchisement aspect to all of this, and if you look at the demographics of St. Mary's, I mean, the average age of a person is 40ish.
Yes.
And our council isn't representative of that demographic.
Yeah. And we haven't had a person of color on the board in quite some time. And by the way, one of the first city council people, one of the first city councilmen in St. Mary's of color was Mr. Gerald Roberts, and he's in pretty bad shape in the hospital line. I'd like for people to remember him in their prayers. But since him and maybe a couple of others, we've not had any representation as far as the black population is concerned.
Do you think there needs to be a minority district?
Yes, I think there should be.
Okay. We went down that road before many years ago. For some, I don't know what the backstory was on that, but for some reason we didn't do one.
Well, one of the reasons why the way it was written up.
Okay.
In other words, they had the black district, but the black district could only vote in that district. Everybody else could vote for everybody else.
Okay.
That was a major problem. But if you have the district, say 4 districts, and maybe the mayor run at large, there are several ways that you can do it to make it equitable. There are several ways that you can do it so the people downtown feel like they can elect who they want to.
Right. Well, I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Let's go a little deeper with that. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, downtown has some old infrastructure.
Yes.
And they're putting liners in there, and I'm being told that those liners will be good for 40 years. And I mean, that's issues that where I live, we don't have to deal with that where I live.
Right.
We don't have to deal with that at all. And so that is a serious need that a downtown representative would need to constantly stay on.
Right.
So if you're not in downtown and you don't live in downtown, and if you're a council member not from downtown, you may not listen to that issue. So that's a good point that you bring up.
Hello, this is Jeremy Spencer.
If you have any other topics you want to discuss, we can discuss them. Or if there's anything you want to say, and any final closing remarks about your candidacy, we can do that now.
Well, Jeremy, I just want to say that I've lived here all my life. I've had a great upbringing. I know the good, the bad, and the ugly about St. Mary's. I mean, it's rich in history. Not all of it's great, but you know, we are what we are. I love everyone in St. Mary's. I can't think of anybody that I dislike. I think that we're a great bunch of people, and we're bringing in even better people. I would enjoy the opportunity to be the representative for Post 1 for St. Mary's. And I'd also like to say that my parents, you know, they raised us with good moral and good work ethics, and I use this daily. I always remember too, especially when I have major subjects like this interview, you know, I prayed about this several times before I consented to have the interview, and I prayed about it before the interview to make sure that I didn't say anything that was would cause any hard feelings to anybody, because after the dust settles, we're still going to have to be St. Mary's residents. We're going to still have to love and protect each other. And I would ask anybody that sees this or hear this that feels like they would like to support me in whatever way, holding signs or whatever, to get in touch with me. I think everybody know me, and I'm Artie Jones Jr., not Artie Jones the third, Artie Jones the fourth, or Artie Jones Sr. And my grandson, as of a few minutes, is on his way back from South Korea. He's in the Army. So he's spent a year in South Korea. He's supposed to be here tomorrow.
Wow.
So I'm going to go down and welcome him back when he comes in. And one other thing, you know, we were talking about work ethics, and I was telling somebody I got a watch that the railroad gave me for 27 years of working without missing a day from work because of sickness or injuries or anything. And everybody thought that was so great. And when I tell them that my dad worked 48 years and never missed a day from work,
Wow.
and you know that's saying a lot. And I tried to beat his record, but unfortunately the mill shut down
48 years is that's huge.
without missing
Yeah.
a day. And the first 2 years he worked there barefoot. He worked barefoot. He's a great man. I admire him, not only what he taught me, but just the way he is as an individual. And you know, all of my family members are, you know, I respect and love them all, and that's the kind of thing that I want to bring to the board: love and respect.
Well, I appreciate your interview today, and thank you for having the time to do that.